Forest Hill Church has made a firm choice to be a Matthew 25 church, one that prioritizes the vitality of our congregation, seeks ways to dismantle structural racism, and whose members work together to eradicate systemic poverty. Of course, all this activity takes resources, the time, talents, and treasure of our members and friends, for which we are so grateful. With God, we truly are limitless. The first psalm is guiding our stewardship efforts this year. It reads in part, "They are like trees planted by streams of water, which yield their fruit in its season, and their leaves do not wither. In all that they do, they prosper." Psalm 1, verse 3, New Revised Standard Version. Indeed, after several years of COVID disruption and isolation, as well as transitions resulting from staff changes, Forest Hill Church is more than ever determined to prosper, not wither, on the banks of the stream of our faith. In this interview, Elder Jenny Himmelman talks with Pastor John Lentz about how all this energy and activity look from his perspective. Hear how he views priorities for the congregation in the coming year.
John, it's so nice to sit here and talk with you. Usually we talk a little bit at a time when we're passing each other in the hallway or at the end of the service.
We're making Bruce Springsteen comments.
Yes,
about,
absolutely,
yeah.
Which we will continue to do.
Yes, I hope so.
As well. But thank you for sitting with me.
Sure, of course. It's good to be here.
John, what does it mean to you to prosper, not wither, on the banks of the stream of our faith?
It means I need to dig my roots deep or plant my roots deep into those things that give real life. And so in the context of a church and in my own life, I mean, I think that comes from really tending to my faith, so maintaining our prayer life, being in worship together, doing things that are really important in this community that God calls us to do around issues of righteousness and justice and compassion. I think to prosper and to have our roots go deep and not wither means we have to take care of ourselves. So I think self-care is really important. And I think that takes some discipline. You got to work at it.
Is there one lesson about good stewardship you would encourage members of our faith family to consider?
Yes, and I think it has to do with consistency and commitment. To offer a financial commitment to this church is really an important aspect of spiritual discipline. It is something that it's really important that you do. And I think it needs to be sacrificial. I think you need to make a commitment to this church that maybe stretches you a little bit, because I think that is what God is always calling us to do in all aspects of our life. You know, step into that light and then step a little bit further.
Okay.
So I think that's important. So be sacrificial, be generous, and be consistent. This is an expression of your commitment and your faith, and so live into it.
This past year has been a year of change at Forest Hill. What's kept you grounded?
You know, it's interesting. I mean, there have been changes. Really, the big change has been Pastor Goins' retirement. So that's changed. But I would argue that actually there's tremendous consistency and continuity. We haven't changed our mission. Really, there has been an increase of people coming back from COVID. I think the programs are the same. So I would just say I think there's a lot of continuity. But there has been transition. And what has kept me grounded? I think two things. One, on a personal self-care side, I was training for the triathlon, the Cleveland Triathlon, and I can't tell you how much that training and then ultimately the event just kept sort of half my mind away from any of the stress and just released that and kept me focused on a goal. So that was very grounding to me. I think another thing that kept me grounded was really just a real trust that God's not done with us yet.
Right.
I really do feel that strongly. Churches go through changes all the time. This is not that unique. Right. I just feel like we're exactly where we're supposed to be, actually. And so God's not through with us, so I really do trust that. I just want to continue to celebrate the wonderful spirit of this church. This is really a very functional, healthy church. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean we don't have our moments. Of course not. I'm not implying that. And there's no such thing as a perfect person or a perfect church or a perfect anything. But I think we need to give ourselves credit about the nature of our mission, the spirit that is released here. And I don't think the congregation realizes how much this church is recognized and respected in our presbytery, in our region, and really outside of our region. People know about Forest Hill Church. And so I think sometimes we, within the walls, get sort of caught up with some of the stresses and strains, and that's normal and that's okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But I think we need to also recognize we're a really pretty healthy church, and let's just keep growing and doing what we do.
You mentioned, I think at a session meeting recently, you were at a conference recently, and other churches, and our denomination and other denominations going through the same kind of challenges daily. And we're not alone, right?
We're certainly not alone. And one of the things that I heard there is there's really no going back to pre-COVID days. So we're in a position where we've got to think imaginatively and faithfully about what's the next chapter in our faith life together. We may not be able to return to the way things were, but I think God has a promise for the way things will be. And I'm always one to lean into the what can be rather than what's past.
What has excited you most about the past year?
Oh, there's so many things.
Yeah, you could just name a couple, or 3 or 4 or 5,
one
10, 11.
Was, as people began to come back to church on Sundays, so a little bit of an increase in the number of bodies sitting in the pews. Mm-hmm. The number of people who continue to watch online maintained. And so I was excited to say that really we were holding our own financially. We were holding our own in the number of people who were actually tuning in or coming to service. So that excited me that we weren't like losing people. Another thing that excited me was the work of our staff. I mean, I can't really say enough about Amy Wheatley, who's working on the Christian education side, on Ying, on our music side. These are amazingly dedicated, programmatic, brilliant people. And they're giving their heart and soul to, continuing to grow their programs. So I'm very excited about the staff. I mean, and Antoinette, you couldn't have a more lovely person be the face and first voice of this church as people come in. So I'm very excited about the staff. I'm excited about the enthusiasm of people in our education. Ann Williams has done an incredible job with creating program for all ages in terms of adult spiritual growth. So I think I'm very excited about that. I've already talked, of the staff, yes, but the choir, I love that very excited about the types of music that we're getting into. And the other week when we were out front to see, Jim Hogue and others play their instruments, and so that's just really fun. So I'm excited about that. I'm always excited about the continued commitment to our asylum and our commitment to immigration, and just being compassionate for that. So there's lots to be excited about.
There is.
This video was created by the Forest Hill Church Stewardship Ministry.